The Toronto Blue Jays stay hot, the NBA stays busy, and we get ready for an even busier weekend in combat sports with one of the biggest fights of the year headlining what is a massive, massive weekend. Let's talk about all of it. Couch Potato Diary Live starts right now. Welcome everyone to Couch Potato Diary. Happy Monday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for starting your week with us here. It's me. My dog's in the other room, I guess, and cats. Busy one for you guys today. Let's get the full Penta mask in there. Come on. So we got, this one's going to be broken up into two parts, as I guess we normally do now around these parts. Part one, we are going to be looking at the Toronto Blue Jays and a fantastic, fantastic weekend for them again. One player had a bit of bad news, but that's all right. We'll get into that, and a great question from Toxic over on the Twitch chat. Also, we are going to get into a three-team deal in the NBA, a recap of what happened in the CFL, and then in part two of the podcast, all on the stream here for those of you watching live, it will be a look at combat sports, as it is Taylor Serrano 3. I am so excited for the fight this weekend, so we will get into that, plus a gigantic weekend in the world of professional wrestling, AEW, and 3 WWE shows. We're all going to look ahead to all of that. And then whatever you guys want to talk about in the chat, you can let me know. And even if we're not talking about it at that time, I'll probably finish what I'm talking about, just for my own editing purposes, and then we'll dive back in. Some great stuff from Deeds in the chat the other day, leading to a pretty successful, for me, video on Morgan Frost and everything like that. So love taking your guys' chats, and whatever you guys want to talk about, I am here for it, so let me know. As always, we're presented by Sea of Dead. Check out seaofdead403.ca for this great Calgary swag. We got the Cannons hat rocking right there. Also, shout out to Swift Energy, as they are providing the fuel for this one today. Head over to swiftenergy.gg. Use that code PK Primetime. Some great flavors, some great drinks. The shakers are good too. I still have one of the older era ones because they're still working. So it's their fault for making products that are too good. Head over to swiftenergy.gg and use that code PK Primetime. Wherever you're watching on the live streams, let me know how the quality is going, and hopefully we'll just roll right along with this one today as we start with the Toronto Blue Jays, who apparently just are never going to lose ever again. And so the question is, How are they doing this now? How are the Blue Jays this much better from the team that played a year ago? Let's get into it, and then a bit of a snub for one of their top players. So the Toronto Blue Jays are just never going to lose again. They pick up another series sweep, this time over the Angels of Los Angeles, Anaheim, California. That joke's better if I use it better. Anyway, the Blue Jays continue to roll. And what is great is that it feels like it is a different player doing a different thing every single night. And they have been doing this to such a degree now that we are getting into best start in team history territory for this group, which is wild considering this team. And so Toxic over on Twitch asks point blank, basically, how? The roster is essentially the same going into this season. So how is it that this team is now doing things differently? Deed's letting us know that Twitch is still twitchy. Gonna have to get that figured out. Not sure what's going on over there. But yes, how is this happening? Because you look at it, and the big change that was made, the big move in the offseason, was to go out and acquire Anthony Santander in free agency to be that big rock in the middle of that order. And even when healthy, you haven't really gotten a whole lot out of that. So where is the difference, and where is the better? Because, I mean, another difference is Vlad isn't hitting. I mean, he's hitting, like he's an all-star, but he is not at the torrid pace that he was in the back part of 2024. So again, how? And I think it's a couple of things. I think one, it is a change in approach. And George Springer, I think, really highlights what is happening there, as he has put a real focus, I guess, on hard contact and launch angle and all of those things. And now look, like it is easy to say everyone in baseball is trying to hit the baseball hard, but he is particularly good at hitting. And so to now have this change of, look, I am comfortable if I hit less, but the ones I hit them harder, I'm fine taking that trade-off. And he is such a smart hitter and such a good hitter that he has used his very good sense of the strike zone, his pretty good contact rate, to now turn that into hard hit balls, and he's really driving them all over the yard. So I would say he is one of the biggest changes, is that change in approach. And we are seeing a few guys just looking to hit the ball hard and change things, right? Like Addison Barger, kind of the same thing. Like, he is still in the upper part of the league when it comes to exit velocity. And it is him, it is Kirk as well. A lot of these guys have put a focus on hit the baseball hard and drive it instead of just, let's just hit it and see what happens. So I think that is a big part of it, is the turnarounds for Springer, Barger, and Kirk are the ones that are really leading the charge for this baseball team and really pushing them into this first place category, regardless of what Michael Kay thinks. And that is helping out a lot. And then I think it is just a better utilization of some of the other players. And I think that there was a little bit of painting with the same brush when it came to the hitting style with this team over the last couple of seasons. And it's, okay, we're going to do this, and then with two strikes, we're going to Well, what works for Springer isn't going to work for Bichette, which isn't going to work for Ernie Clement, and what works for him isn't going to work for Alejandro Kirk. These are different human beings, right? So you are going to have a different approach to figure out how to handle all of them. And the Jays have kind of understood, like, okay, this is what Springer needs to do to be successful. This is what Vladdy needs to do. This is what Kirk needs to do. Well, what does Ernie Clement need to do? Well, he's kind of only getting fastballs, so maybe we should focus on that a little bit, hey? And they focus on that. With Dalton Varsho, when he was turning things around, one of the things that we have heard about since the day he set foot here in Canada is this guy has trouble with that high fastball. And so they have adjusted things and figured out how to properly utilize all of his talents. And you look at the bottom of the order, like, okay, Jimenez, maybe not going to be this absolute bombing guy. So we need to utilize some small ball. Let's do some hit and run. Let's do some bunts, which I do not endorse, but they're working. Let's try to figure out how we can make each individual player on this team successful, instead of this is the way we are doing it and this is the way you are going to do it and we will be successful because this is what makes you successful. It is a different approach for each guy, and it just seems like they have found the right mix for those sorts. And again, another part of this, and I don't think he gets enough credit for it, but John Schneider is managing his ass off when it comes to this team, when it comes to lineup composition, when it comes to the deployment of the bullpen, when it comes to the different strategies that they are utilizing as the games go along, when it comes to hit and runs and sacrifice bunts and taking those extra bases and everything like that. You look at the difference right now between the Blue Jays and the Yankees. The Yankees had a very difficult time hitting with runners in scoring position against Toronto. And the Blue Jays came up with just big hit after big hit after big hit. Why? Because this is a team that is comfortable in their approach right now. But where were some of the other issues? It's Volpe making a diving play over at short, but then throwing it behind the runner at third base. It is a missed block behind home plate that leads to a game-winning run. The Yankees' problems with the fundamentals of baseball cost them a championship. Now, I don't think they're going to win that one anyway. But the Yankees had poor fundamentals. Obviously, they were able to adjust accordingly because they had a very good season getting to the World Series. But still, they gave up a lot of those easier type of plays and were just able to bash their way out of it. The Blue Jays don't give those up either, right? Like, every at-bat is a competitive one. Every play defensively is made and made almost perfectly, it feels like. And a lot of the decisions that are being made are made perfectly. So it is just an organizational shift. And it sounds so weird to say. It's an organizational shift to be smarter and better. But that's basically what the Blue Jays did, to come in with a different approach of how to handle everything. They have done that in a very, very successful way. And we will see now if that can continue. Because look, there is going to be a cooling off period for some of these guys. Like, I don't think Barger is going to be in the top 10 of exit velocity the entire season. But it's cool that he's doing it now, and I don't think that Lucas is going to keep hitting monster home runs or anything like that, but it's great that he's doing it now, and when there is a bit of a dip, maybe that is when Vladdy takes a 2-week run of just being the best hitter in baseball. Maybe that's when Bo Bichette really starts to turn it on. Or when a Dalton Varsho comes back into the lineup, or a Santander comes back into the lineup. That really will push them into an upper echelon when it comes to keeping at this pace now for Toronto. Toxic, again in the chat. I think the Jays need bullpen help. Having only 2 leverage guys is kind of rough. That is very true. That is very, very true. This is not a flawless baseball team. They need help in that bullpen. And honestly, probably more than just one guy. Like, I don't think this is as simple as go out, get Fairbanks, and boom, problem solved. This is going to be, like, that helps for sure. But you are right. Getting one more guy you are comfortable with in leverage, huge, 100%. Lock that down. But I also think you are going to need another probably middle relief guy to get to those, because the starting pitching depth continues to be tested. So there are still a lot of different things that this Blue Jays team can add to, but it is very nice to be adding when it comes to a first place baseball team. Isn't it? Isn't it nice to be talking about that instead of, hey, well, a couple of these and maybe they can get to a wild card game that they're going to blow in heartbreaking fashion? Wouldn't that be swell? It is nice to be, hey, this team's in first place and still has a few things that they can improve on. On that note, I had someone make a comment on one of the Blue Jays videos that I posted talking about like what needs to be the look. And I just did that one in, hey, these are the things that they need. And one of the comments was, hey, like the video, which, thank you. Also, if you want to literally like it, just click that little thumbs up button. Helps me out a lot. But the second part was, I think that the bullpen is more of a priority here. And that was not the intention of it. I wasn't listing those off in order of need. It was just, I was talking about the offense. So coming up on the show tomorrow, when we do another live stream at 10 a.m. or the video out later in the day and podcast-wise and such, we're going to specifically break down what are the biggest priorities for the Blue Jays. Get that little checklist going for Toronto as we get into the trading season in Major League Baseball. As I mentioned, the next stream here for Couch Potato Diary is going to be coming at you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Hopefully, Twitch gets less twitchy by then, but either way, a few spots that you'll be able to check it out on. But Twitch, YouTube, and Kick going to be streaming live again tomorrow at 10 a.m. While things have been rolling, some people have noticed, but maybe not enough, as the Toronto Blue Jays are only sending two to the Midsummer Classic this year. Vlad Guerrero Jr. named a starter, and Alejandro Kirk is backup catcher, one of the reserves, at the catcher spot. I think a lot of years Kirk would have been the starter, but he is behind an MVP candidate out in Seattle with Cal Riley doing everything that he is doing. But I think there is one notable omission from this, and that is George Springer. And now, again, the caveat that all of this can change with 1 or 8 injuries that always seem to just pop up right as the All-Star game is going. But for him to not be included right now was surprising to me. Because it's not like this little hot stretch here. Like, it's not like he just hit the grand slam against the Yankees a week ago, and that is what really sets everything into motion. He has been a quality baseball player on this Blue Jays team all season long. And when you consider how good he has been for basically the entirety of the season, how good the Blue Jays have been hanging around, although I will say the national conversations have only included Toronto in the last little bit. But still, the Blue Jays have been a playoff team or somewhere thereabouts for most of the season, and Springer is a familiar name. Like, I am not sitting here today being like, oh my stars, how could Addison Barger not have cracked his way onto that list? Because unless your team has played him in the last few weeks, you're not really talking about him. And that is part of the All-Stars, is that you have to have a very good season and people need to know about you. Well, people know about George Springer, so I am surprised that he did not make this All-Star game. And I do think that from a Toronto standpoint, I think there's a couple of ways that this can be a positive for them still. Number one, I don't think it's the worst thing that George Springer gets a week off. Personally, I think that is actually a very beneficial and helpful thing for George Springer. He is having a phenomenal season. And the Blue Jays would just rather the All-Star break not happen and just play right through. But that's not how the schedule works. And so if you're going to have this break anyway, may as well let Springer fully enjoy it. And just like cold tub, hot tub the whole time. Just in, out, in, out, in, out, 7 days. Keep that body as fresh as possible, because he has dealt with injury issues, and he is on the wrong side of 30 when you are talking about professional athletes and everything like that. So I think having that extra week to just sit and chill, I think is going to be very important for him and for the Blue Jays. Also, I do think that it is nice while your team is rolling, and that's what the Blue Jays are. They are on fire right now. I think it is still nice to be able to have a little bit of no one believes in us mentality. And so for the Blue Jays to be a first place ball club and having 2 representatives in the All-Star game, I think that's nice to have George Springer have a bit of a chip on the shoulder. Like, hey, I'm playing at an All-Star level. You guys don't see it? I'll make you see it. And for John Schneider to go into that locker room every day and like, hey, look at that. I'm only looking around at 2 All-Stars here, apparently, and get this us against the world mentality that, quite frankly, teams in Canada seem to thrive on when it comes to sports that we are also included in when talking about our neighbors to the south. So I think that there is actually a little bit of a needle that Schneider can play with this whole thing that should help the Blue Jays out, or could, anyway, help the Blue Jays out down the road. But, again, no complaints about anything. This ball club is on some kind of roll right now. If you missed any of this, whether you are getting to the stream late or watching this later on and just want more from Couch Potato Diary, you can do that in podcast form, as we are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can take Couch Potato Diary with you wherever you go. For those watching live in the chat, hopefully any video issues that we've been having have been figured out. I hope. Anyway, but either way, if you have more to say about the Blue Jays, absolutely send it my way in the chat and we can keep that conversation going. But we are going to pivot now to the world of the National Basketball Association. Just quickly, it on my end anyway, Twitch looks like it's going okay. But Deed, sorry that is not necessarily the experience that you are having there right now. Let's move over to the NBA, as we have another multi-team trade, and it is another one where you look at, wow, the Miami Heat did pretty well, and wow, the Utah Jazz sure are doing things. Maybe not well, but they're doing things. Let's discuss a 3-team trade that happened in the NBA today. The NBA's offseason rolls on with another huge trade. This one more huge in the fact that it involved multiple teams and not necessarily the star power, although it's certainly not the 7-team trade that got completed the other day. But the Miami Heat have acquired Norm Powell from the LA Clippers, who acquire John Collins from the Utah Jazz, who acquire Kevin Love and Kyle Anderson, along with a 2027 second. So, let's break this one down. Let's start on the Miami Heat side. I think that this is a very interesting, very good move here for Miami, as they are coming off of a bit of a turbulent season. So I think they needed a little bit more talent on this team, to be perfectly frank. And to go out and acquire Powell, coming off of a very good year with the LA Clippers, I think is a good move. I don't look at what they gave up off of their roster as something that is overly inhibiting to making this sort of a move. I think that they get a phenomenal deal out of this whole thing. And to bring in Powell, who just kind of fits, like when you talk about Heat culture and everything like that, I know it was mockingly and everything like that, but when you talk about the type of player that Eric Spoelstra and this ball club seem to get the most out of, Norm Powell kind of fits that mold perfectly, doesn't he? He just seems like he is a Heat culture type of a guy. And I think this gives them an interesting look now with Hero, Powell, Wiggins, Bam, Ware, Davion Mitchell, Jovic, Rozier. But still, you have quite a few pieces that I think are interesting. And we've talked about it here before. The East is not overly threatening. And so, we are talking about the Hawks being a potential title contender because they have 8 guys that you like. Well, I listed about 8, and 6 of them you feel pretty good about. I think that this is a very good addition. It's someone who is comfortable on both ends of the floor. He has been productive in three-point shooting. They lost a bit of that when they sent Duncan Robinson out the door. I didn't even include Fontenecchio in all of this as well. He is at least something. There is something there in Miami. Is this a team that gets you back to an Eastern Conference final? Probably not, but you at least have some high-level pieces on this team. And I think the one thing that they need right now is someone to just distribute the ball to all of these pieces that you have on this. Because Hero, for his offensive upsides or anything like that, I don't view him as that guy. I don't view him as the quarterback who is up there just getting everyone in the right spot. I would much prefer him being not just like park in the corner and shoot this 3, but I would rather someone be in charge of the basketball and just get him the ball in good spots instead of him creating for everyone. So I do think that there is another ad that needs to be made for this Heat team before you can really start to talk seriously about them. But I think this is a really, really good rebound in this Eastern Conference coming off of the Jimmy Butler mess that they had to deal with. I think that this is an interesting fit for the Los Angeles Clippers as well, with Collins going to that team. He's kind of been forgotten about in Utah. I think it gives them an extra forward option. If you want to bring him in off the bench, which probably, looking at the lineup, that's probably where he fits in with this team, which is a little bit expensive for a bench piece, but still, I think that he is an interesting option coming off of the bench. If you want him as an athletic 4, or if you want to go with a small ball 5, I think he can fit both of those depending on what the Clippers want to do. And we talked about this when they added Brook Lopez. It is a guy who can throw 5 fouls on Jokic if they need to out in LA too. So I think that there is some benefits to this. I don't like this roster as much as I like the other parts on Miami, especially when you get behind away from Kawhi and Zubats. The James Harden Game 7 was really, really concerning with how just horrendous that looked. And so I think that there is, this is a good move. It's a good move for them, but I still think there's a lot of work that needs to be done to try to get this to a caliber of some of the other teams in the Western Conference. Speaking of other moves that need to be done, the Utah Jazz, okay, neat. They get the trade exception, I guess. They get a second-round pick. That's fine. I do wonder if they can flip Slow-Mo, Kyle Anderson, or Kevin Love for anything, but I don't think it's been a great offseason for them. I think when you look at having Clarkson, Collins, and Garland on your team for a group that is probably trying to rebuild at least a little bit, to have those guys on your team and to now come away with that with nothing for Clarkson, this for Collins, and Nurkic for Sexton. I think I was saying Garland before, but for Sexton, this doesn't. It's very underwhelming. And for obviously, Markkanen is probably the biggest trade chip that they have, but for them to have these assets and to not get anything else back for them is really, really puzzling from Utah. They may have got a home run in Ace Bailey in the draft, and they have a couple other younger pieces that you kind of like, but not to the point where you needed to clear guys out of the way just to open up spots for them and to just punt on potential assets coming in. We've had this talk before, right around the draft lottery when Dallas ended up winning it, wondering if the NBA got away from tanking. And so I can understand the Jazz, given how the lottery balls didn't go their way, maybe not wanting to just sell all these pieces off for 9 different draft picks or anything like that. But to just take a bit of a step back from what they had and just, we got a second round pick and a couple of other assets that maybe we can turn into more second round picks and maybe other lesser assets. It's taking steps down and down and down and down and down. And now all of a sudden you go from having a $5 bill to just a bunch of quarters in your pocket and that's probably $5 worth. And then you get to the till and it's $3.50. It's just weird metaphor. Doesn't really happen to anyone, but you understand what I'm saying. They have tried to piece a few things together with pieces that they actually should have got real legitimate things back for and just never did. So I think it has been, while it's icky to talk about human beings in this way, I think it has been a real masterclass in bad asset management for the Utah Jazz. Things are always changing at Couch Potato Diary, so make sure you follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads, anywhere you are on social media. I'm there too. So follow me on social media for updates about Couch Potato Diary. One other move that happened in the NBA that I haven't really had a chance to touch on just yet, and that is the Washington Wizards acquiring Cam Whitmore from the Houston Rockets. I like this quite a bit for Washington. Whitmore is still just 21 years old. He's never really gotten a fair shake out in Houston. And so this is the exact type of a player that the Washington Wizards should be going after. And to only give up a pair of second round picks for it, I think is a very smart move for this basketball team in what has been an off-season kind of full of them, as they are able to get out from Jordan Poole. They bring in an adult in the room to help out with everything, and they have made a couple of other pretty strong moves that brings Whitmore now into the fold. And now, we are getting to the point with the Jazz where it's there might not be as many opportunities for him even in Washington because they have this, that, and the other thing. I don't think we're at that point yet. I think they're still not great enough that you can try to piece a few of these together, but I think that was a great move for Washington to try that. It's a tough one for Houston, and I don't think that the Cam Whitmore trade is how the Houston offseason is going to be remembered, just putting that out there, but it felt like he was more of a trade piece than this, and it felt like if they wanted to go out and make one more big splash type of a move, he could be an enticing, and we'll give him right? And it just, clearly, the rest of the league didn't think that because he wasn't a fit in Houston. The rest of the league didn't feel like he was a fit in Houston. And no, Houston would want to unfit themselves from it. So to hope that you could throw him into a bigger deal felt like it was a bit of a fool's errand. So why not let's not deal with someone who's going to be unhappy on our roster. Let's get at least a couple of things for him and bring him in. But it's a tough one. And I think they were kind of hoping to be able to use him as a bit bigger of a trade piece. But again, they have big things happening in Houston right now. But another smart move from the Washington Wizards. If you're enjoying the stream and want to support Couch Potato Diary, there are a number of ways that you can do it. Again, a huge shout out to Deeds, who is a continued subscriber over on Twitch, even though it's not really cooperating with him at the moment, but also Toxic, who has been a long time follower and person in the chats in the Twitch streams. So obviously, subscribing on Twitch helps a lot. Following on Twitch is so appreciated. Even watching these streams at all, if you have just dedicated your eyeballs to to whatever I am doing, or your ears, that means the world to me. If you do want to help out financially, there is a tip link. It is in the description of the YouTube video, and it is also a panel on Kick and Twitch. That would be, it would mean the world to me, and help out with the pets as well. So yes, if you feel so inclined to want to support the streams, you can absolutely do that. We have the tip link going on right now. Again, if you have more NBA thoughts, send them in the chat. We can talk about them in a little bit, but we are going to pivot now to the world of Canadian football, as 3-down football is having a bit of a breakout. I'll say it. I think this weekend went really well for the CFL, with a couple of very interesting games and quite a few interesting storylines to talk about. So let's do that and dive right into the CFL story coming out of Week 5. Again, may have let that go too long, but I like it. The CFL, I think, had a very interesting 5th week of its regular season, and I think it started on Thursday. We had Deeds talk about it in the YouTube chat when we were doing the show on Friday, but that was a real... This sounds a very reductive way of talking about it. That was a big boy win for the Calgary Stampeders. We had talked about, well, yeah, like this is going well. You're not facing the most resistance, though, you know? So maybe you're not all that concerned about a matchup against Hamilton or Toronto. And then the weather was weird in Ottawa, it's tough to whatever. But now you're facing a real team. This is a Bombers team that looks like a real team. And they went out there and just smacked them in the mouth for 60 minutes all over the Stampede Bowl. The only thing that slowed them down was Bret Michaels inexplicably having a concert out there and singing whatever songs that he can from Poison. That was the only thing that could slow the Stampeders down, was a concert at halftime. This team was on fire in this game. And we talked about, like, hey, don't worry about the touchdown numbers with Vernon Adams. They'll come around. That offense put up some big points, and the defense kept them off. And that was the biggest, like, oh, okay, we see you. We see you, Calgary Stampeders, putting up that type of defensive performance against this good Winnipeg offense. Excellent showing. Excellent showing for the Stampeders, and one that will certainly be reflected when we do our CFL Power Rankings coming out tomorrow. Another surprising one from the Canadian Football League, as the BC Lions stun the Montreal Alouettes as they are able to get a last-second field goal to pick up a victory over Montreal. And I think the big story in this game is the Alouettes clearly, while I think they have a great roster, clearly do not have one that can make up for subpar quarterback play. And once again, McLeod Bethel-Thompson was the problem. And I said, this is why you bring in these vets. It's a smart move to have that kind of a backup in that spot to be able to roll through and feel comfortable about things if your guy gets hurt, because you have a roster that should be competing for a Grey Cup. He ain't the guy. Like, it's bad. It's really bad. And this is a couple of weeks in a row where they are games they should not be losing. And now all of a sudden, and look, I'm not concerned long-term about Montreal, but all of a sudden Hamilton's creeping up there. And while I think the world of this team, if the Ticats are all of a sudden going to be able to bank a couple wins against these guys and somehow, some way slip their way into a home playoff game, not just a home playoff game, but maybe that top spot in the East, all of a sudden now, what feels like the best team in the CFL has a bit more of a challenge to have. And even if it's not that, which it probably won't be, I still think Montreal is that much better than everyone else in the East. But I do think that Hamilton at least has the potential to rattle off a few wins here. And so if there are going to continuously be banana peels on this schedule for Montreal, then if nothing else, you're not going to be able to rest some guys as the season winds down, and it's going to be a little bit difficult for you. Now, they rested them a year ago and it didn't work, so maybe this is helping them. But it's not nothing. I don't think it's a fatal flaw or anything like that. I don't even know how much there is actionable on it. I don't think they're going to be trading for another backup quarterback. But It is just something to note. And for the Lions, god damn did they need a win like this. Nathan Rourke is very clearly showing that he can be a very dynamic force at the quarterback spot. And it's a tough Montreal defense to deal with, but still to come up with a couple of big plays late to win that football game was huge for them. And I think could be a bit of a starting block for the BC Lions going forward. We talked about the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They come up with a strong performance against the Toronto Argonauts as that offense put on a show. And so I really do think that this Winnipeg team can still be something. And I'm not going to light on fire the tickets I have of Bo Levi Mitchell MOP, and I think it's over 4,500 passing yards. We might have some work to do, but I'm still feeling all right about that one. I still think that there are just so many parts of this offense that you have to feel good about if you are a Hamilton Tiger Cats supporter, and should feel good about. And to be able to put on that type of a showing against the Argos, it's a nice one to see it finally start to click, because while it is not, again, against the most resistance, I still didn't think they faced that a ton at the beginning of the year, and I thought a lot of their issues against Calgary were self-inflicted, and I think that there was a few moments where they could have taken advantage of Saskatchewan a little bit more than they did, and still just didn't. So I think that there is a hesitancy to not want to get too into what happened here, and to not want to get too like, oh my god, look how they did it. But I do think that there is also just a nice, hey, this is not the type of performance they would have put up a few weeks ago. A nice progression that is happening out of the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And finally, the Edmonton Elks are in the win column for the 2025 season with a win over Ottawa. Another close one. It is one that, again, Ottawa's defense is not very good. So for Edmonton to be able to put up 38, again, it's good that they did that against humans, right? Like, it's great that it was not just a practice. And hey, look at that. We just put up a bunch of points. It was nothing like that. But it was nice to see them actually do this in an actual competitive football game. I don't think it means all of a sudden they're better than anyone else in the West, or anyone outside of Ottawa in the East. I think this is another one where it is starting to get concerning what is happening with this Ottawa football team. So a couple of things to keep an eye on as we run through the week. That is going to do it for part one of the podcast today. For those watching on the live stream, part two is going to be coming up here in just a moment. We're going to keep the live stream rolling. But for those listening in podcast form, part one is now done. Make sure you check out Sea of Dead for that great Calgary merch. Make sure you head over to swiftenergy.gg to fuel your next gaming session. Or we're watching CFL football. We got maybe some late nights coming up watching the Toronto Blue Jays kicking some ass. We got some major fight weekends coming up. So we're going to need some of those, some of that fuel from the drinks to help us push forward. SwiftEnergy.gg, great spot for that. The next live stream is going to be coming at you on tomorrow, 10 o'clock a.m. Mountain Time. Make sure you check it out. So for people on the live stream, part two is coming up in just a second. But for those who are listening, that is the end of part one. I just liked it so much I wanted to play it again. Part two of the podcast today goes right now. Flawlessly, I know. But coming up in part two, it is a massive weekend in combat sports. In boxing, one of the biggest fights of the year is happening, as it is Taylor Serrano 3 on Netflix. We'll talk about that. We'll get ready for busy weekend in the combat sports world in the WWE and AEW as All In, Saturday Night's Main Event, Great American Bash, Evolution, all taking place this weekend. So much fun stuff to talk about, but we begin in the world of boxing. Taylor Serrano 1 and 2, while we did claim to have a undisputed champion, the only thing that was undisputed coming out of those fights are how damn close these two fighters are. Will we get a conclusive finish in the third installment of this trilogy? There's only one way to find out, and that's to let him fight it out. I can't wait. This is your Fight Night first look for Taylor against Serrano, the third one. Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano have very much guaranteed that their names will be etched in history forever. And given how things have gone in the first two fights, they will probably be side by side every time that they are mentioned. But one of them wants to pull ahead, and they will have an opportunity one more time at Madison Square Garden this weekend. This is your Fight Night first look for this monster fight. And first of all, I cannot stress this enough, how big of a moment this feels like again. You have two legends coming off of two very close fights with so much on the line. And I think also coming off of having the spotlight that you had for that second one with the undercard of the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight being second from the top and being the fight that actually got people talking. That is such a massive moment to now build this up. And so again, now it is the main event at Madison Square Garden. It's going to be amazing. And what's kind of cool about it, they were the first, right? Like they were the first main event, of a Madison Square Garden fight night that was a female fight. Now, it's another main event for these two. It's just what they do. They main event Madison Square Garden. It's just normal now. It's so cool to see that. And so the biggest story, I think, going into this one, is this going to be decisive this time? Both fights, very highly debated, both of them going Taylor's way. Serrano, in a lot of cases, the fighter who loses both probably wouldn't get a third fight coming out of this one. But I do think when you see how close it was and how many people are saying that she actually won the first two fights on this, I think it's a no-brainer that she deserves a third one in this spot, just given all the circumstances and given everything going on with this. And obviously the momentum behind it. Like it is not just based off of resume or who is deserving of a title shot. She is that, but there is a little bit of the financial aspect of this as well. They had a monumental fight on Netflix. Now they're back on Netflix, and this is a chance to really build off of that. So a very, very important fight for these two. For Taylor, it's a chance to put a lot of the concerns to bed. Regardless of what you think of the first two, the conversation switches, I think, probably pretty quickly if she wins this one. Like, it does kind of feel like it's like an old wrestling match where you have all the belts kind of hanging over the ring, and the ladder match, right? You climb up and you get all the belts. That's what this feels like, is that, I mean, like, you literally do get all the belts, Undisputed Lightweight Championship, but you get to climb up, if you win this one decisively, you get to climb up and grab all three wins down at the same time. It kind of feels like, right? Like, it feels like this is a fight for not just one win, but for three for Katie Taylor, which she would probably tell you is unfair because she has won the first two. She has that green mark on her boxing rec for forever that she beat Amanda Serrano twice. And obviously that this is a highly decorated fighter, and we are talking about the two best of all time. But that is not good enough for them. For this level of competition, they want to be the best. And the first two fights, while there has been a winner and has been a loser, has not felt satisfactory for deciding who is the best. Which, again, it sucks for Taylor because she gets the win in both. And in almost every other circumstance in combat sports history, if you have the top two fighters, maybe of all time, going head-to-head, and one wins two of them, there's no contest. There's no discussion. We're not, like, think about how the conversation maybe shifts around Canelo and Gennady Golovkin if Gennady maybe gets one of them. And you could have a lot of talk about, well, maybe he should have, but the other one he really didn't. And that just kind of, the other one, like Gennady probably won that one, but Canelo gets them both. That is what is kind of on the line here for Taylor. If she can go out and really make a stamp on this one, then it kind of puts the memory of the third one away, where it's, okay, well, yeah, maybe Serrano did win that, but they were close enough, and then Taylor really took the third one. So she gets all three, and it works. That's kind of what is on the line here. For Serrano, it is a chance to finally get that massive win. And she has had an unbelievable career. Again, one of the GOATs in women's boxing and just boxing in general. In the history of people punching each other in the head, she's one of the best to ever do it. But it just feels like this is the last missing piece of an incredible resume, of an incredible legacy to get to this point. This is the last one, to get one of these fights against Katie Taylor, to just hear, even if she believes, which she should, that she was the better fighter in a couple of those occasions, just to hear echoing through the Mecca at Madison Square Garden, close to where she was raised in Brooklyn, to hear the winner and new undisputed champion, Amanda Serrano, to get that validation, I think it would mean the world, and is the only thing that she hasn't got from this sport. So again, it is a chance on a massive stage to really solidify what you've been saying this whole time, that you are the better of the two. So I think it is going to be absolutely fantastic, this fight. From an actual X's and O's standpoint here, I wonder if anyone changes their style up or anything like that in this third fight to steal the overused MMA term, take it out of the hands of the judges. And look, when you look at how their faces were marked up after that second one, I don't know if there was a whole lot that they could do aside from being able to bring a chair into the ring that they could do to knock the other one out. But you do wonder if someone, instead of, okay, well, we just threw like 300 punches in this one, maybe let's throw 275, but we throw them with an extra 10% on them and try to really close this show out. Or maybe there is, on the opposite end of that, maybe it is a little bit better defense. Like, hey, let's not try to get marked up that much this time and turn these into these wildfire fights. Let's see if we can come out of this with our eyebrow fully intact this time and have a bit of head movement and get in on these shots and just try to not get marked up so much and make it look obvious on the defensive side of things that we are the winner here. I'm very, very curious to see what kind of adjustments are made as we get into the third fight between these two. And I am very curious. Like I said, I cannot wait for this fight, and I'm not looking past it. But I am genuinely curious about what happens after it, regardless of the outcome. If Serrano wins, you have to have a fourth, right? Like, I'm sure some people may roll their eyes at that, but come on. Like, Taylor had the first two wins, even though some will say she shouldn't have. Serrano gets a win here. Like, Taylor almost deserves another opportunity to try to get it back, doesn't she? But if Taylor wins, I think regardless of how razor thin this thing feels, that has to be it. So, like, this could be the final chapter in this rivalry, or it could be just Act 2 in a very exciting, maybe 5-act play that these two are putting on. So just such a fascinating fight all the way around. We are going to have a ton of coverage on this fight here on Couch Potato Diary, wherever you are consuming us, podcast-wise, on YouTube, on Kick, on Twitch, all over the place. We are going to be all over this fight. As you can tell, I'm a little bit amped up for it. If you missed any of the podcasts today, we're just into part 2 of today's podcast. If you missed part 1 or just want to come back and check it out again, you can do so by bringing Couch Potato Diary with you wherever, and that is through podcast on Spotify. You can also get it on Apple Podcasts. But Serrano Taylor 3, while it is the biggest fight of the weekend, it is not the only big fight of the weekend, as Shakur Stevenson has another opportunity to silence a lot of haters. But his time to do that is running out. Let's take our Fight Night first look at a big evening for Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson has long been regarded as one of the best fighters in the world, but something's missing. He is looking to find that something this weekend. All that stands in his way is William Zepeda. This is another Fight Night first look as we get ready for this showdown. For Stevenson, he enters another big fight needing another big showing. He is a master when it comes to the defensive side of this sport. And that is not to say he throws like 8 punches and out he goes, but defensively, few in this sport right now, and while it would be a bigger number all time, still, there aren't a whole lot that you can conclusively say are a better defensive fighter than Shakur Stevenson. Unfortunately, we are not at a point in this sport, or I mean most, where you can put on a poster, hey, come spend $60 and an hour of your time watching this guy not get punched in the face for 12 rounds. That's going to be a tough one to get the buddies over for on a Saturday night, to drop some money on DAZN pay-per-view when you already spend money on DAZN, but that's another thing for another day. There are a lot of questions about him offensively, and I think even for the strongest defenders of Stevenson, the Padley fight was a difficult one to really defend. Was he in complete control of that one? Darn right. He was in complete control of that one. Did he dominate that fight, basically start to finish? Abso-freaking-lutely. Was it the impressive performance that it needed to be against a guy who was coming in at like 1,000,000,000 to 1 odds because he took the fight on a week's notice? It was not. And that is always the issue with Shakur, is that defensively, the guy is not getting hit. But offensively, he is just doing enough to win these fights. And he does get a finish in that bout against Padley, but it was in the 9th round when a lot of people were wondering if it would even last 3. He obviously has something going on with his hands where at some point they just start to bother him, which is not a great thing when that's kind of the whole point, is to hit people with your hands. But he needs to really start to look like the actual big favorite that he is in these fights. And not just because he's pitching a shutout with great footwork and head movement, because he is actually putting offense on his opponents and really making a concentrated effort to get them out of the ring. If he was able to do that at any point in the last few years, we are talking about one of the stars of this sport. But it doesn't happen with him nearly enough to get there. And look, I would love for it to just be wins and losses based. But there is an aspect of showmanship when it comes to this sport, and when it comes to getting the biggest fights here. And I don't even know what the real criticism is here. He is defending his championship. He is the A-side on a DAZN pay-per-view after fighting Riyadh season, where he probably made a lot of money. Like, this guy is doing all right. And so if that is fine with him, that's fine. But when you are wanting to get into the conversations with Tank Davis and all these other big fighters to really cement your legacy, this ain't doing it. Wins and losses, okay. Like, that's, you need to win. Obviously you do. But there does need to be a style point in there at some point. And Shakur just does not have enough of those. So this is another opportunity for him to do that. On the opposite end, it is another guy who does not feel like they are on the level, but has this shot, as Zepeda is the one who gets the opportunity here. It's obviously the biggest name. It is obviously the toughest opponent that he has faced. But it is also a big name that comes with maybe a level of vulnerability based on if there is really a hand issue here. He is credited as a KO artist. I think a little bit of that is a reputation that has followed him throughout some of his earlier fights. The last couple of fights have gone to a decision. I think it's 1 knockout in the last 4 or something along those lines. He obviously has the power. But as the competition has ramped up, those knockouts have seemed to go away for him. And so, that needs to change in this fight. If he has any hope of winning this bout, it is going to have to be by knocking Shakur Stevenson out. I'm not going to say no world, because we have seen stranger things happen, but in very few worlds is Zepeda outpointing Stevenson in this fight. So he is going to have to be the knockout artist, and he is going to have to be the one who is bringing that power punch that makes Stevenson be perfect for the entirety of the fight. He needs to be on his absolute A game for 36 minutes to be able to get out of this one with a win. Zepeda has to put that type of pressure on him and try to drag a big fight out of Shakur Stevenson. We will see if he can do that. But again, the bigger story in this, and it seems to be happening a fair amount in boxing right now, it does kind of feel like we are talking about, okay, we have this pay-per-view this weekend. Can't wait to see what happens after it. This fight is whatever, he's going to win. But then what happens next? Oh boy. That does seem like where we're at with Stevenson. Like, he is fighting guys that should not be on his level, but he is not fighting them in a way that gets him to the next one. So again, it feels like Shakur is on the cusp of getting to superstardom with a performance. Eventually that is going to break through, and eventually he's just going to win enough of these that's like, fine, we will give you this opportunity. And this will probably be it for him. But can he make that exclamation mark on this one, or was it one fight too many of playing with your food, and Zepeda comes in and upsets the apple cart? Very interested to see how it goes down this weekend. We'll be breaking it all down here on Couch Potato Diary throughout the week with our full preview coming up on Friday. Make sure you keep it locked on my social medias. I'm at Primetime Klein on Instagram, X, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. Make sure you are following those to stay up to date on everything that is happening with Couch Potato Diary. As we move into the pro wrestling portion of the evening, as AEW has their biggest show of the year, it's going up against 3 WWE shows, so it's a wild time in professional wrestling. We will start our breakdown of the professional wrestling weekend and our look ahead to that weekend as we dive in to AEW's All In. For the first time in a bit, the vibes feel right in AEW, and it's great because they're heading to their biggest show of the year. AEW All In this weekend, and as always, it feels like a big deal, right? Like, it feels like this should be a absolutely massive build-up, and it has been. They have, I think, hit the big fight feel on a number of different marks. I think they have a ton of momentum right now heading into this event. I love where they're at creatively with so many things right now. A lot of the progression feels logical. A lot of it is exciting. There are some actual serious stakes on the line that you actually believe. Like, there is a lot that you feel very good about with AEW going into All In. It does kind of feel like a new era is about to begin with AEW. And look, I don't want to put too much onto this one, but potentially you're getting away from the Death Riders, or this, like, controlling version of it anyway. Potentially you're getting away from the EVPs and that storyline that a lot of people have rolled their eyes at. Potentially, not only are you getting away from things that have frustrated people about your company, but you are now potentially going to get the most out of Okada and Omega on this big of a stage. It just feels like a lot of things have lined up for them to right a lot of wrongs. And they are self-inflicted wrongs. There is no debate about that. And we have been critical of AEW on this show. But this weekend is a chance to at least separate yourself from a lot of those and build up into back into this challenger brand that they have been talking about. One thing I do like about this is, like, it is only one fewer match than we had on last year's main card for All In, and there might be some more additions as we go along, but it feels like it is a more focused storytelling approach with these right now, which is wild because we've also had AEW 300 and the summer break thingy and everything that they were doing, and the show in Mexico. They've had some big things to build up to along the way, but all of it has been through this filter of, let's make Dallas, Texas, Arlington, I suppose, for actual accuracy here. Let's make Arlington feel as big as possible when we're going to a baseball stadium to have this match. So I think that they have built this up in a really effective way. And we talked about this a little bit on the Dynamite recap last week, where WWE, it felt like they kind of ran out of steam in parts of their build towards WrestleMania. And I think they were able to pick it up a little bit at the end with a few of the things, but it did feel like they had more weeks than ideas. That has not felt like it has been the case with AEW. This has not felt like a, oh my god, this build is dragging sort of a thing. Everything has been building to this crescendo out in Dallas. And so I think this more refined approach to storytelling, whether it's Tony Khan has just figured it out, Brian Danielson or Christopher Dan or whoever, if it's Chat GPT, I don't care. It just is a much more effective approach to storytelling from AEW this time around. And it feels like you're going to get to every match. Like, oh, can't wait. Oh, this is going to be good. Oh, don't know what's going to happen here. Which is another aspect of this. Like, I do not have a lot of belief that there is a ton of drama in the men's tag team match. But almost everything else, there feels like there is at least a little bit of doubt in so much of what could happen there. So I think that this is a great card for AEW. And it feels like a major opportunity for this company. The honeymoon does seem to be over with wrestling fans and TKO. And now that AEW has turned the tide on this creatively, they've gotten the nose up, whatever other cliche you want to put in, but they feel like they're hitting this at a great time. And WWE kind of feel like the big bullies who are doing a lot of things that people are really frustrated by. I don't think we're going to get to a point where, oh my God, AEW actually is the #1 wrestling company in the world. I don't think we're going to get to that. But I do think we are going to get back to a part where ticket sales and TV ratings are going in a much more favorable direction for AEW, and there's people actually talking about them as a challenger brand and not just them talking about themselves as this challenger. So it's a great opportunity for AEW, and one that it looks like they are going to be taking full advantage of. A lot more on AEW All In coming up throughout the week. Coming up tomorrow, we're going to look at the overall health of All Elite Wrestling, just where they are at right now, entering their biggest show of the year in 2025, and kind of how we got to this point. All the great wrestling talk from Couch Potato Diary also lives on Living Room Lariat. If you are only here for the wrestling, Living Room Lariat is the place to go. It is an accumulation of all the wrestling talk from Couch Potato Diary throughout the week, with some bonus stuff that you don't get on the flagship the flagship Couch Potato Diary show. So if you're a wrestling fan, you don't want to sit through some CFL talk, I mean, you might learn something, you might enjoy it. But if you don't, I understand it. Not all wrestling fans are sports fans. So there is now a home for your wrestling takes, and it is Living Room Lariat, wherever you get your podcasts. So AEW All In is happening this weekend, and the WWE has decided to go with the approach of quantity over quality. But we still have to talk about it. So let's look ahead now to WWE. Their first thing going up against All In on All In Weekend, it is the Great American Bash. Nostalgia is the name of the game for NXT this weekend, as not only are we hearkening back to a classic WCW pay-per-view, but we are also going back to a classic WWE model to go against a classic WCW pay-per-view with some good old-fashioned counter-programming. But that seems to be where the conversation may turn, because when WWE was counter-programming WCW way back in the day, when it was Jim Crockett Promotions, they were counter-programming with Royal Rumble and with Survivor Series, and sometimes Saturday Night's Main Event, like some big marquee events that they were putting on. Now it's this, and this ain't all that great. I am very underwhelmed with everything here. It is so obvious that this is just here entirely to try to fuck with AEW, which is not a great thing. And it is opening themselves up to a conversation that I don't think they need to be opening themselves up to. This feels so extra and so over the top for me that I genuinely don't understand why they are choosing to try to counter-program with 3 shows in this way. And so when you look at the cards here, when we go over Great American Bash, Saturday Night's Main Event, Evolution to a certain degree, this feels every bit like oh shit, let's just throw something together and see what happens. Like this Great American Bash card. Let's talk about it. We only have, at the time of this recording, 3 matches. One of them is the men's title match with Obafemi taking on Inamura. I am interested in the match. I do not have much question about the outcome. When it comes to, is it going to be Inamura? Is it going to be Obafemi? I don't know. I do know. Sorry. I don't have any question. It will be Obafemi. The one question I have is, can Inamura show well enough of himself that NXT gets another main eventer out of this? That is what they need. On the men's side, we've talked about it so much since we've really started to put a focus back on NXT here on Couch Potato and Living Room Lariat. This men's main event scene is severely lacking right now. And Obafemi's awesome, but they're like that whole promo that he cut about wanting competition. That's kind of a shoot because there's just not a lot for him right now. I don't know if Inamura is that right now. I'm fairly certain he's not. The one question is, can he get to that level? We'll see. I am a little intrigued by the tag team match. It's Jordan Grace and Blake Monroe taking on Fatal Influence. It's a chance to set up some drama in the women's title match at Evolution. That's the next night. Like, I wonder if I would imagine some kind of like an injury story to go into that. Or even JC Jane gets a win and now she has this momentum, and maybe Jordan Grace, who has had a bit of a rocky start, maybe stops believing in herself a little bit like that, and you start to play into that momentum thing going into the next day. So I think that this provides an interesting storytelling device going into that match. And so I think that is a pretty effective way of going about this. The other match is Sol Ruca taking on Izzy Dame for the North American title. And I said before, like I feel like Evolution should have been a spot where you had a real spotlight on a number of great performers from NXT, because that women's division is stacked. That's obviously not going to be the case now. Or I guess I shouldn't say obviously. Maybe they do. Like they set this up and it's a no contest or something like that. And okay, the only way we can decide this is tomorrow at Evolution in a blah, 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 blah match. I think that there is, I guess, a way you could do that. But it feels like if they weren't trying to shoehorn this into this one, this would be a great showcase opportunity for Sol Ruca and Izzy Dame to a certain degree at Evolution. But instead we get it on here. Now, there are a few ways this one can go. I was going to say, I don't think we're far enough in the Sol Ruca Zarya story yet to like fully do this turn. Like it feels like there's a little bit of dissension that still needs to be there. But thinking about it, like we have been teasing this for a while. Like there was a little bit of it at WrestleMania, and that was, or WrestleMania weekend, that was April. You might have heard here, jets flying over. It's the Calgary Stampede, which means it's the first week of July. So there's a lot that you can kind of talk about where these two have kind of gone, but it has kind of felt a little stale. So maybe there is a bit of freshening up that can jumpstart this and get it going. So I'm interested to see if there is a progression in that and what the inclusion of Tatum Paxley is in everything after her team. All of them get released, and so she is left wandering and into the warm welcoming arms of the culling with Izzy Dame. I'm interested to see where she falls in. So, the matches they have aren't bad. Does it feel like a takeover of days gone by? No. But there's at least something to watch in all of these matches. There's just A, not enough of them, and B, the reasoning for it is so annoying that it is tough to really look past from a wrestling fan standpoint. So that is one part of the WWE calendar, the developmental one, so to speak. Then we get to the main event of Saturday night for WWE anyway, and the retirement of an icon. But again, it is kind of marred by just everything feeling so thrown together. Let's talk about it. WWE's Saturday night's main event will look to play off of nostalgia on a few different levels, as we get the glitz and glam and the old 80s music of Saturday night's main event. And then in the main event, it is Goldberg looking to turn back the clock one more time in his retirement match against Gunther. But the whole thing hanging over this, again, is how obvious it is as a counterpunch to AEW going with All In. And this was one of the initial ways that Saturday night's main event really got going. And so I think that there's just a level of frustration, I think, that is probably coming through in all of this. And like, you don't need to do this right now. AEW is nothing. Like, it's a really weird time for them to have started to do this to AEW, because they're getting 3,000 fans to a show if they're lucky. And I just talked about in the AEW All In look ahead that it feels like that company is building momentum, but they weren't when you were scheduling this shit. So I don't understand why this needed to happen in the way that it did for WWE. And now you look at it, and again, we're recording this 2:00 on Monday, at Mountain Time. And so we're a few hours away from Raw. We have 3 matches scheduled for NBC. And I get network television, not the big draw that it used to be, but still, This is supposed to be at least a big showcase type of a thing for you. And you have 3 matches ready because everything has been so goddamn scrambled with everything going on, trying to counter AEW as much as possible, that it feels very sloppy. But again, much like with Great American Bash, there's at least things to be intrigued by in all 3. So let's start. Gunther against Goldberg. It is the world title match in Goldberg's retirement match. I have really enjoyed the build-up to this. I think Gunther has been spectacular. I think Goldberg has been very effective at being Goldberg. I think that there will probably be on Monday some kind of physicality or something to just kind of drive home like, hey, Goldberg actually doesn't look all that bad, unless maybe he does and then they don't. But I would imagine there will be at least a little bit of some kind of a social media thing that you can get going with Goldberg to really try to, like, hey, make sure you tune in to see this guy maybe spear and maybe jackhammer one more time. It is not going to be a Matt Classic. I don't think anyone in their right mind is expecting it to be, but I am fascinated to see how this one goes. LA Knight against Seth Rollins. I think it's an interesting one. It does feel like we've kind of skipped some steps along the way to get to this point. We just had, LA Knight got cost in a couple of matches, so he went out after Seth Rollins, and now we're going to have a gigantic match on Saturday night's main event. It feels like we've skipped a couple of steps here, and part of it is they're on different brands for the most part, so you kind of got to speed run through a few of these things, but I am interested in this one because this is one of the better in-ring performers that LA Knight is going to be in the ring with. And so this is, for a guy who has been really bumping up on what they are looking for as a main event guy, it feels like this is an opportunity for him to show, look, I can hang with the best wrestlers you got. Give me these opportunities now. So this is a big match, I think, for him. Storyline purposes, I would be surprised if Rollins loses this bout, but I think that there is at least a level of intrigue in this, in just seeing how it looks. And then Randy Orton against Drew McIntyre. It is kind of wild that the last time we saw Drew was on a Saturday night's main event and he was getting blasted by a chair as Damian Priest walked out of the ring, much to the dismay of Jesse the Body Ventura. But to now have Drew miss all that time and come back ahead of Damian Priest on the card is a little bit interesting. I hope, this is going to be a fun match, and I hope it is just the first of a few, because these two would have such a good feud and such a great back and forth. I would be very, very excited to see a longer-term program of Randy Orton and Drew McIntyre. But again, the fact that we have 3 matches to talk about on the Monday leading up to Saturday night's main event, it shows you how everything is with WWE around this one. So again, a little bit of frustration. Not that it's happening, but why it's happening here this weekend. One more show from the WWE, and it's the one that deserves the attention and the accolades. For the second time, WWE is showing off its evolution on the women's wrestling side as the all-female show is set to close out what is a busy weekend in WWE and in professional wrestling. So what's ahead for us in what should be a pretty fun and pretty important night? Let's take a look. Closing in on 900 of these things. I'll get them right one day, though. It is such a busy weekend in wrestling, and the busyness is one of the reasons why people are a little frustrated, and I hope that they don't overlook what is happening with Evolution, because we all have our thoughts about TKO and WWE as a whole, and the world of professional wrestling's treatment of women in general. But I will say that it is really great that we are having this type of a showcase again. And I understand the first one was based largely around Ronda being there and everything like that. I hope that this is an annual thing now, to really put that spotlight on just how many talented women performers there are in WWE right now, and how kind of overlooked a lot of them can be. There have been stretches, and I would argue that we are kind of in that now, where, there's been some great stuff, obviously, creatively, WWE-wise, and character work-wise, over the last little bit. But you're going to have a tough time convincing me that Liv Morgan, Rhea Ripley, and Io Sky, that there's a whole lot that has been definitively better than what those three have done to start this year. Or that triple threat match at WrestleMania involving Io, Rhea, and Bianca Belair. You're going to have a tough time showing me that that isn't the match of the year, especially from WWE. This is the type of a spotlight that these women have deserved. And I think, okay, it is great to do this. I do think that there now needs to be a building off of it. It's been a while since they have put a women's match in the main event on a PLE. And I think that we have had a few pretty deserving opportunities for that, and they haven't. Now, obviously, this one's going to get it. But I think that this is a chance for them to kind of reset their view on this and really dive into what is a strength of this company, and that is the talent on the women's roster. And you think of the influx of talent that they have had in the last little bit with Stephanie Vaquer and with Julia coming in. They get Kairi Sane back. Asuka is now back and healthy. You've had progressions of Tiffany Stratton, who maybe hasn't hit what they wanted her to hit, but is still progressing. You have Jade now moving into a main event picture. You have Io, who has really found her character. And like I said before, Liv Morgan, who's turned into a superstar in the last little bit. Roxy Perez, we didn't even talk about her. Like, there are so many talented performers on the women's side. And so hopefully this is a nice reminder to the company that this type of a spotlight doesn't need to happen just one time a year with one particular show. It does feel like of the weekend, though, it does have, like, it has the most matches set up. It has the most just like, okay, this is what we're doing here. So it's pretty fun to see what is all kind of scheduled. You don't love every way that it has been put together, but I still think it's an interesting way and a couple interesting matches. What I'm fascinated to see now for Monday is who is the Raw tag team. I can't imagine that Nikki Bella came back to be in this battle royal. And I get the Liv injury kind of throws things off a little bit, but I would guess that they are the Raw tag team. Nikki and Brie come in as the tag team, win this number one contender thing. They go into the tag team title match and build it up that way. So I think there are going to be some really good matches. I think this is going to be a really, really good show. And I am hoping coming out of this now, there is a renewed focus on this division that is a strength of the WWE right now. So once again, for all the pro wrestling talk from Couch Potato Diary, there's still going to be segments on Couch Potato. That's not going away. So if you're here for the sports and the wrestling, keep it locked because it's all going to be here. But if you just want the wrestling, it is over on Living Room Lariat with some stuff that you don't hear on the flagship podcast. So make sure you subscribe to Living Room Lariat wherever you get your podcasts. From the YouTube chat, we have Connor D, who has been a fairly regular one now. What was typically in a young Peter Klein's lunchbox as a child in Saskatchewan? Interesting conversation. A lot of food from Connor, obviously. It was pretty bland, if we're being... Not bland, I shouldn't say that. That is derogatory against my mother. But a lot of times, like a nice quick deli meat sandwich or a leftovers from the night before, we were constant go, go, go in my house. It probably doesn't look it to see me now, but I was in sports basically year-round. Basketball, volleyball, baseball, all the way through. There wasn't a whole lot of downtime. And then I added on top of it drama in grade 12 for no good reason. It was fun. I shouldn't say no good reason. But so we were constantly going. My mom was on like 8 committees. My dad was coaching either me or my sister throughout that entire thing. So didn't have a whole lot of time. The slow cooker was our friend. We'll put it that way. To just throw something on. It was delicious. All of it was. Don't hear what I'm not saying. Everything that we ate was great. But there was a lot of time. It would be leftovers. It would be a lot of like, okay, here's the deli meat sandwich. You got some yogurt was a huge, huge one. Loved some yogurt going in there. Big fan of the tubes at the time as well. Sometimes get some pudding mixed in and some fruit. So it was a pretty standard small town Saskatchewan one, I would say, with the sandwich, some kind of a vegetable option, and a yogurt, and then maybe if we were feeling fancy, a little bit of a pudding in there as well. And then I would be financially very irresponsible and go buy some candy and pop from the vending machine. So, very boring answer, but one that Connor, I'm sure is excited about nonetheless. That is going to do it for the show today. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Bit of a longer stream, certainly not one of our longest, but our longest in a bit. Thank you guys so much for hanging out as always. Our next stream is going to be tomorrow, Tuesday, at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Gonna keep talking about all the big fights and all the wrestling that is happening this weekend, with a little bit more sprinkled in from the Canadian Football League and baseball, and then some of the other big news happening in the world of sports, and whatever you guys want to talk about in the chat. As always, you can help rep the city of Calgary, or just buy some shit that looks cool with Sea of Dead. We got the Cannon's hat here. Again, even if you're not from Calgary, this is just objectively a cool looking hat. If it can look this good on me, imagine how good it would look on you. So check that out over at seaofdead403.ca. If you need some energy to get through your next gaming session, head over to swiftenergy.gg. Oh, what I could have done, Connor, if those were thrown into my lunchboxes as a child. Oh, the things I would have done. But all we have for it now is gaming and podcast streams. So check that out. You can follow me on social media. I am at Primetime Klein wherever you are on the socials. If you are listening to this in podcast form, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. If you are watching this, make sure that you subscribe or follow, hit that like button, and share this with your friends and like 2 or 3 people you don't like, just to throw them off. Thank you guys so much for hanging out today, and I'll talk to all of you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your Monday, and happy Stampede, everyone in Calgary.